Okay, welcome back. So below this video, you're going to have links to download two files. The first one is the bag of tricks file, and the second one is a bag of tricks example that I'm going to walk you through in this video. So let's start by opening up the bag of tricks file. You can either print this out, or you can accomplish the same thing by simply taking a blank piece of paper and drawing a vertical line down the middle of it. So what you have over here on your left-hand side is a situation. And the situation is going to represent something that your prospects are either frustrated by, or it's going to be a situation that they want to achieve, right? So on the right-hand side is where you're going to write the solutions to help them get the result they want as it relates specifically to that situation. Now, you don't have to write out the solution in detail, just a quick bullet-pointed list. So let's, whoops, there we go. Give up the other file here. So let's assume that I'm looking to attract a list of people who want to sell more stuff on webinars, right? So in my bag of tricks, I'm listing all the situations and all of the outcomes that they are either frustrated with, such as no registrations, or the outcomes that they want, such as increased sales or whatever. So you'll see over here on the left-hand side, I've listed no registrations, right? So that's the situation that they're experiencing, no registrations. Now over here on the solution side, I've listed better targeted traffic from PPC, paid email blasts, the use of retargeting, email invite to an existing list, registration page copy, registration page layout, and I could even go on and list more, couldn't I? I could list webinar title, webinar topic, webinar time, date, etc., right? So let's scroll down to the second little column over here. Let's say another situation they have is that nobody is showing up. So in that case, my solution for that, and again, this is just for my internal use here, my solution for that would be that they could have a proper reminder sequence, that they could improve the timing that happens between the minute they register for the webinar and the time the actual webinar is held, because that matters, right? If they register too far out, then they're going to forget. If they register too close, it doesn't give you enough time to build the value of showing up. I could have an indoctrination sequence where I could teach them that. An indoctrination sequence is something I invented for a webinar process that sort of causes the prospect to know, like, and trust you prior to them ever getting on the webinar because you helped them in advance. I could list ways where they can overcome skepticism by explaining why the webinar is different, because one of the reasons that people don't attend a webinar or don't do anything is they think it's going to be something like they've experienced in the past that they didn't like. So another one that I could have that would fix that problem is to teach them how to avoid doing replays and train people to actually show up, because most people don't show up on webinars because they know that, you know, the next day they can just get a recorded replay that they can watch at their leisure, right? So those are two situations in which I've created a list of solutions. Okay, so I'll go on here and I'll scroll down a little bit just to sort of give you some more ideas of how to brainstorm this type of thing out. Let's say the same crowd here, and again, these are people who are wanting to sell stuff on webinars, right? They might have a situation in which they're not getting enough sales. So my solutions over here that I've written down on the left hand, or rather on the right hand side, that's the other left, on the right hand side, is I could teach them how to do a post-webinar sequence. And that's this two-part sequence that occurs after a webinar has been held, where you overcome objections by continuing to teach, and then you do something called a countdown sequence. I could also teach them something called the ultimate close, which is at the end of the webinar. There's a structure that you use to make your offer, similar to the 12-step offer structure I have here. So I could teach that as a solution to that problem. I could teach the 5 steps to a good webinar that sells, because there is a specific 5-step overall structure. I could teach them how to address skepticism in their webinars. I could teach them the use of boosters, such as deadlines and better than best and bonuses and so forth. So there's a lot of things I could help them with that would overcome that problem, that would be solutions to that situation. And the same goes on with tech overwhelm, and the same goes on with another situation they might have, which is writer's block and lack of confidence. So let's choose any of these, right? So here's the cool thing. Once you do this worksheet, every single one of these situations right here and their corresponding solutions, every one of these can actually be a lead magnet in and of itself. So if you really want to dominate a marketplace and get as many subscribers as you can, the first step to real mastery of this is to not simply have one lead magnet, is to hit them at every solution that they could possibly be having to offer a situational, or rather every situation that they could possibly have, you want to offer a solution for that in the form of a lead magnet. So imagine now, if I'm going out to the webinar community and this week I start advertising a lead magnet, which is, what do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 secrets to help double your webinar registrations. And during that lead magnet, I explain, here's how to get better targeted traffic with PPC. So I'd walk them through some Facebook targeting, some custom list stuff in Facebook, etc. And then I say here, and then I would teach them how to do paid email blasts. I'm not talking about spam, by the way. I'm talking about using emails, sponsored emails to other existing newsletters, right? Such as using the directory of e-zines or smart briefs and all other sorts of resources. I could teach them how to do retargeting, right? So if someone hits their opt-in page and doesn't register, you can sort of follow them around through retargeting. I could teach them a simple campaign to get their existing list to come and show up for the webinar. Another thing I could do is I could teach them, 6 different headline combinations and bullet point combinations for registration page copy. And I could also teach them and even show them 4 or 5 proven registration page layouts that have been getting good conversions for webinars. I could teach them any or all of these. This whole little chunk here could be made into a very, very solid lead magnet. So if I wanted to just do all of them, page 1 would be, 5 ways to get better traffic with PPC. Number 1, here's how to choose your perfect target audience. Number 2, here's how to use custom audiences in Facebook. Number 3, here's how to use a software called Perfect Audience to do retargeting on Facebook. Number 4, here's how to steal your competitors' fans on Facebook and advertise just to those guys, right? And then I could page section 2 of this. And incidentally, that alone could be a good lead magnet, just this one little chunk. But if I wanted to keep on going, section 2 of the lead magnet could be, here's a directory of places where you can do paid email advertising, and here's a sample of an email that you could send to the owner of a newsletter where you're inquiring on sponsorship, or if you could pay them to advertise in their newsletter, or maybe even a joint venture thing. Here's how to find people. Here's how to use Google to find other websites with email lists that are in your niche that might not readily be publishing their advertising rates, but you could still advertise in anyway, and so forth and so on, right? So this little brainstorming exercise is perfect. Once you just write down your list of solutions, you just literally elaborate on these solutions in the form of your lead magnet. So let's say this week we published the lead magnet for 7 ways to double your webinar registrations in the next 2 weeks. And then 3 weeks from now or next month, we went to the same market and now we're publishing how to double the show up rate to your webinars in 3 easy steps, right? And then let's say we waited another month and we introduced to the marketplace how to, 4 easy tweaks you can make to any webinar to double the sales, without being hypey. Right? And then the next week we said three simple ways to build a webinar funnel without using any high-tech stuff. And the next week we went on and we said how to overcome writer's block for webinar publishers, right? And there was a simple little lead magnet based on that. Well, if you do all of these things, if you address every situation in your marketplace with a different lead magnet based on this little worksheet, you're going to get everybody. Right? So the number one mistake people make when it comes to doing this is they just are very, very narrow-minded and they have sort of tunnel vision. They think, okay, I'm just going to create this one lead magnet about getting registrations. Well, what about the guy who's got tons of registrations but no one's showing up? He's still going to want to buy the ultimate result, which is how to make more money with webinars or whatever it is. So he would be a perfect candidate. But if you only publish this, you're going to alienate them. Right? So the trick here, the big takeaway is 2 parts. Number 1, if you use this very, very simple worksheet and very, very simple exercise, you'll have all the lead magnet content and ideas you could possibly stand, right? And then if you use this to make multiple lead magnets, you'll get way more subscribers. So let me walk you through kind of how that would look in terms of a funnel. So let's say we're going to create multiple lead magnets here of these 4 topics right here. So what I've done is I've just kind of made a little flow chart of how that would look in the grand scheme of things. So I've given you this flow chart, by the way. If you would like to download it, let me expand it on the old computer here. So those first 4, well, there we go. Those first 4 lead magnets, if you remember, the first one was the situation they had was they needed more registrations, right? They didn't have enough. So I identified, if you'll look back in my little worksheet here, my situation solution worksheet, hard to say that kind of fast. I identified several ways, in fact 5 ways specifically on how to solve that problem. So that's what the lead magnet is about. Same thing with how to get more attendees, same thing in terms of how to double webinar sales, and also had multiple solutions on how to overcome technical overwhelm. So these are all the titles that I just kind of brainstormed up here. And the way it would work is I would have traffic sources, and I could have multiple traffic sources depending on lead magnet. It wouldn't matter, joint ventures, email advertising, PPC, Facebook posts, Google AdWords, Bing, and all of that sort of stuff. Content network, you name it, right? Any sort of traffic source in the world. And all I'm doing is just advertising these lead magnets. And all of them, of course, lead to the same singular funnel, which in this case would sell a product on how to have better webinars, right? On how to do good webinars and how to make them sell, etc. Of course, which I do have that product. So I should probably follow my own advice on this one because the product sells very, very well. So that's the big picture overview of how this works. So right now, why don't we go ahead and just let me walk you through a very, very simple worksheet to help you flesh out the content of just one of these. And the worksheet is plug and play. So of course you could do it for as many lead magnets as you want. But I'll pause this video, rather I'll end this video here. And in the next video, we'll just go over a very simple little worksheet to just crank out these lead magnets today. At least get your first one made today. Now, here's what's interesting, is most businesses, most internet folks, they just build everything off of one lead magnet, maybe 2. So I'm not telling you have to create 4, 5, 6, or whatever, but if you really want to crush it and get everywhere, this is one of the ways to do it. Right? So in our next video, I'll walk you through how to get this stuff created in no time flat. So thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.